Welcome to another episode of the Wellness and Legacy Group Mastermind. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for those of you that this is your first time here. Our networking group is dedicated to connecting death care professionals. If you are located in Ponte Vedra, the Jacksonville area, we'd love to have you come out and join us at one of our local meetings. For those of you here that may be hearing the death care industry for the first time, you may be saying, what in the heck is Carolyn talking about? Well, I started my journey here in the death care industry working in probate and trust real estate. This is where people pass away and their family loved ones inherit the property, and I help them sell. As I started looking to the left and the right of the families I was working with, I realized that they were working with multiple professionals at the same time, a lot of times. So after someone passes away, they have to go to a funeral service, they got to open up probate, or maybe they go through trust. There's an insurance claims, annuities, 401ks, financial advisors, trust and estate accountants, estate sales. And so we started realizing that it was in our best interest that we started communicating with each other and really understanding all the professionals that actually work in this space. As we all started to get together, what we realized is that yes, we're working in the post-death administration, but naturally that takes us full circle back to pre-planning. So if you work in the post-death side of business, you become a natural advocate for pre-planning, financial planning, estate planning, funeral planning, insurance planning, and you do such a great job planning, then you get to the age where you then start aging and you may have to get home health care services and senior services and hospice before you actually pass away. So our group aims to really centralize all of these professionals in one space so that we can understand what each other does and how we can serve our communities better and be more productive as professionals. So our vision is creating a seamless connection between the wellness industry, which serves individuals prior to death, and then the legacy industry, which supports individuals and families post-death. So what we've often recognized is that both sectors often serve the same customers at the same time, simultaneously, and our group aims to foster a deeper understanding and collaboration across all these critical stages of service to ultimately unite our industry together. So right now you are standing in our mastermind of industry professionals, where we are speaking with professionals in this space to really help understand the ins and the outs of what each other does. So today we have an amazing guest that is going to be sharing with us is the death and taxes. And let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. We have Mike Sullivan, and he is a real treat to have on the show today. He's written a book, he's been on Newsmax, and he's on Carolyn's podcast, which is really exciting. Let's go. So would you, Mike, just help us, our audience, to know a little bit more about yourself and about your background?
I've been very blessed in my life to do a couple different things, and I give God the glory for everything that I've done. I started an IRS career back in 1973, and I worked at IRS for 10 years. With that, I worked in Fort Lauderdale, North Miami, Miami. I trained new revenue officers in Atlanta for a couple different weeks, a couple different periods. I worked in a narcotic trafficking program at IRS during the days of the cocaine cowboys, and that was really exciting. That was worth everything. All my suffering at IRS, that was worth it for the cocaine cowboys. So after that, I decided to open up. What am I going to do when you leave IRS? Well, no one wants to hire you, really. I tried for a couple of jobs and said, you worked at the I, what do we want you for? So that's good. I carried that, what do you want you for, into a private practice. And I've been in private practice for 42 years. Today, I have a whole team of former IRS agents, attorneys, and CPAs dedicated in solving IRS problems. I humbly say, we are one of the better firms at doing this. Every year, I have a tax conference. It's called the Tax Mob. I have a large Facebook group. Actually, I've got to shut my phone off. So I have over 5,500 people in that Facebook group, and it spans the United States. So out of that group, I've taken the best of the attorneys that I like, the best of the CPAs, and the best of the former IRS agents. We have about 240 years of direct IRS work experience in my group. So usually there's not a problem in IRS that we can't solve. When you call me, I know what's going to happen with the case, and we just assign it to the person with the greatest expertise. And I'm really proud of my team. I just got finished writing a book with Peter Salinger, my partner. I'm not going to give you the back. I'm not selling the book. I'm not going to give you any of that stuff. I don't promote my book, but I have done that. I've worked the offer and compromise program. I've worked many decedent cases, estate cases with IRS, and that's pretty much me. I've been to seminary. I love to teach biblical studies. I've been teaching biblical studies for 35 years. I was in Fort Lauderdale and I decided I wanted to move to Sebring. I had a lake house up here and I said I don't want the traffic anymore. So we moved my family up to Sebring, Florida, which is an hour under beneath Orlando. And here is where I reside. This is my office. This is my office in the home. It's not a fake background. It actually isn't. So this is me, and this is where I sit all day long. I have a large YouTube station. I have close to 2 million views. I have about a 5,500 uploads, and I have over 5,500 no, how many? About 30,000 subscribers. So I'm very blessed to sit here. The bathroom is close, so I can run to it anytime I want. More important, the refrigerator is 15 feet. So I've got everything I need within 15 feet. So that's me. That's all that I have to give you today.
Mike, you're amazing. It's incredible to have you. I found you on YouTube, and I have to say you are quite entertaining. I love your videos. I love your attitude, and that's really neat that you're also a Bible teacher and you enjoy that. I'm also a follower of Jesus, and that's really cool. And I see your big scripture in the background. That's also looks.
That's the book. That's chapter 12 of the book of Romans. I do want to mention one other thing. I've been fortunate to be on Fox Business News twice, Newsmax, News Nation several times. I was the first person, believe it or not, in the nation to comment and let everyone know that Donald Trump was actually gets audited, because as a president, you're automatically audited. So I kind of broke that news on ABC News, the Washington Bureau. So that was kind of cool. I sit right
That's
here on this
incredible.
screen, and the first time they went live on ABC in front of millions of people, if I was as nervous as anybody. The thing that people don't know when you're on a live newscast is they don't ask you, they don't give you questions. They tell you this is the topic, and the topic is about Donald Trump and his tax return. That's it. That's it. That's all they tell you. They can shoot you any questions that they want. So I sat here with all these post-it notes all around my computer. It's all by my camera. So if I look to the left or look to the right, I was actually looking at the camera, but I was looking at the post-it note. Well, I had that all figured out. I'm
Wow.
sitting right here, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden, the air conditioner blows on, and I sit right underneath the vent, and all those post-it notes all went flying all over. So I did not have a one post-it note for that interview. I couldn't wait for that interview to be over with. Anyway, that's me. I'm thankful for being
Thank you,
here.
Mike.
I'm humbled that you asked me to be here. I thank you for the introduction, and I think what you're doing is excellent. I will say one thing, having lost a spouse by murder, and when people, in my ministry life, people don't plan on the death part or the tax part, that people are frozen. people, and they have plenty of time. I mean, they've had sometimes 50, 60. Nobody wants to take the time to plan because it's kind of the dirty, the nasty side. People don't want to think in it, but you can lose thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars because of this planning. And what's worse about this is where you have your biggest accumulation of money in taxes is at the end because you've got it all here. So who's going to get that? Well, that's where you come in, and what you're doing is wonderful. You have a whole different menu. What I see is you have a marketplace. A marketplace is, well, where do you go for this? It's like going in the Publix. You just don't go in for milk. You go in to get something on every aisle. What you've done is you've created an aisle for every single thing that a person can have. And you've created funnels for people really to all get together. So I applaud what you've done. It's excellent that you've done. I hope people understand the importance. They will. If they don't understand it, their pocketbook is gonna understand this later on when they have to pay all their taxes.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you recognizing that. It just, really formed together and started getting together as all of us professionals started getting in the room together. And we really understood, estate planning is not done just by an estate planning attorney. It involves also a financial advisor. It also involves an insurance broker. So it's not one professional that can do all things. We have to work together as professionals. And what we've noticed now as I've been on this journey, our group is now just hit a 1 year anniversary of us, having these conversations. And I feel like now the public and, families and, my generation is open to having these conversations where generations in the past, you have your will, your trust, it's in the top drawer. Nobody knows about it until, you pass away. And then all of a sudden it's a big,
Well,
newsstand.
people go scrambling for all the records. Oh my God, where's this? Matter of fact, the hospitals do it right up front. You come in, you have a living will. I mean, right? So this is something that people put in the end, and it's not until the person is already passed away, called home, that
Mm-hmm,
people start realizing. And unfortunately, they take the biggest loss financially at this time
mm,
because they didn't plan. I
they
hope
did.
people plan for heaven this way. One thing, if you're saved by the grace, you're saved by God's grace, that's one thing. Now you got to be saved by in the body now to make sure that's taken care of as well.
And so, one of the things that, obviously, what is that joke that they always talk about? What you can never, death and taxes. You always hear that as a joke, right? Like people
Yes.
say you can never escape death or taxes.
No.
It's a
You
very
can't.
common, joke that people say. But how serious is taxes when somebody passes away?
Well, the bigger the estate, the more money you have, the more you lose. Actually, there should be almost a required period of time that people have that, hey, when I'm 50 or 60, I need to do an estate plan. People don't think about it until someone's sick, they're in the hospital. Many times the people have strokes and they can't even sign the documents. And then here's the other problem that happens. We're not lovingly even talking about the worst of it. That's when the siblings start fighting and then they don't talk to each other anymore. When you go into this with your pants down, so to speak, and you're leaving it open, once you get a couple attorneys involved, a couple siblings involved, an aunt, an uncle, a mother, father, it becomes a living mess. And really, what happens, it divides the family. Whether they're happy at the time, I cannot tell you the family, I can't tell you that death has caused more separations of families than anything because everyone wants what the mom and dad have. That's the big issue here. It's just not the planning. What does it do to the family unit, right? I mean, everyone talks about the money, but what does it do to the family, right? So you
And
don't you don't think about
that's one of the biggest things I deal with the probate, doing the real estate portion is all, when they inherit their primary residence, all the beneficiaries have to agree. So all the brothers and sisters. Now imagine you're estranged, you only talk to them on Thanksgiving. Now all of a sudden you guys are in a business deal together, having to make critical decisions, having to, it can be extremely challenging. And we talk about it a lot in our group. Everybody advocates for pre-planning. But the reality is that we'll always live in crisis. Like there'll always be people that are not going to pre-plan. They're going to pass away. They go into probate, and now somebody, an executor, has to step up and they have to go ahead and administer that estate. So, we really try to touch on all those topics really for us professionals that we can really understand it better and be able to guide our clients. One thing that's kind of been not talked about too much yet in our group is how the taxes, if you think about it, somebody dies, but they still have to file the tax return, right? Or an estate has to, if you're going through probate or you're setting up a trust, you have to get an EIN number for the estate. Then the estate has to file the tax return, right? So, there's so many questions that I have just, and from your experience, I'd love to hear like, where are the taxes? What are some things that we can know as mistakes maybe that families make as they're going through this transition in life? You also have it where families are inheriting money, right? Everybody gets their inheritance and then they'll split it up, or like some families they'll just put it in the will, so like the attorney's not the one that's actually distributing the funds, and maybe it's like, oh, this went to me but mom wanted you to have half of it, right? And so taxes, any monies that any of us receive through any means, there's taxes involved. Tax bill comes around, brother's not giving his portion. What experience can you share with us from, your work in
What
this
what mom and dad do not write down in their will, it's a crapshoot, and anything at that point, anyone can make a claim, and that's what splits the family. So you really cannot go into an estate attorney immediately. They want to get an asset. They want to know what the assets are. They want to know what actually the will of that person is. And that absolutely everything has to be written down. The whole key is just to get to the attorney who knows what they're doing. It's really that simple. The problem is people don't like to talk about a person dying. Like I know my son does not like to think, oh, dad, you're X amount of, you're this old and you're going to pass. It's like a no-no. People are afraid to talk about people dying. And to be honest with you, I don't think that's ever going to change. It's never changed with my parents. It's not probably going to change with me. It's something you can't change in people. All
yeah.
you can do is no matter what you do, it's never going to change because it's a dirty part, a part of life you don't ever want to think about because you want those people to hang around forever. You want to hold on to them. And sometimes you're embarrassed to say, hey, dad and mom, how much am I getting? I mean, so you see, there's nothing
Mm-hmm.
unless you're very sophisticated and you're a
Mm-hmm.
very sophisticated businessman or person. The
Mm-hmm.
other people who are not in that pool, they're all going to go through the same pain over and over and over. To me, it's not going to be a situation that'll ever be fixed because of the true nature of death. So,
So quite a few attorneys that I've spoken with, what they put into their practices is when they set up a trust or they set up, a will for a family, then they will ask to actually speak with the trustee that they assign and not necessarily even have to share with them exactly what they're inheriting or exactly what is going to be happening, but kind of just helping them to, because when somebody just becomes a trustee overnight, somebody passes away, and now you have this large responsibility. This is a big responsibility being a trustee for someone's estate or even being an executor from somebody's will. From one day to the next, you're grieving your loved one, and then now you have all of these responsibilities. So some attorneys now are setting up consultations with the executors or with the trustees just so that they can feel comfortable in, that this, you know, at some point this is going to happen. I don't know why people don't want to talk about it, because it's like a 100% guarantee, right? You don't just say the nitty gritties, but at the end of the day, like, you know, the good Lord's going to take us home. We all have an expiration. We're working these big careers, we're acquiring all these assets, you know, we're not taking it with us, you know, so we're leaving it all behind to the next generation. And the better equipped they are to manage it at that point, you know, is in the best interest of everyone. But
Yeah, I think two things to keep in mind is I would appoint a trustee who's not in the family, especially if it's a bigger size family. There's one or two persons, or there's one older son or one older daughter, but for bigger things, it's easier. It it keeps the family together if you get someone outside the scope of that family, because that person is in charge. Also, the Bible talks about who you're supposed to leave everything to, and that's your actually your grandchildren. The Bible says specifically you don't give your stuff to your kids, but you give it to the next generation. And that's why you give it to the next generation. Solomon, who probably wrote that proverb, I'm guessing it's Solomon, even though people did write other proverbs, he probably wrote that really for a reason. He knew there would be problems. God did. He said, Solomon, hey, put this down. This is a really good idea. And I think that's one of the reasons
oh,
that's
wow.
there.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's really interesting, but that does make a lot of sense, right? Because the children are the ones right behind you, you know,
Yeah.
and probably of course nobody wants their parents to pass away, but then they're also, you know, left with probably a fortune, and if they know that's going to skip over them and go to their kids, right? That's probably
Yeah.
some wisdom.
And I want to just share about what the IRS does in situations. So everyone has to file, as you said, a tax return,
Mm-hmm.
about a state return, a personal income tax return, and a lot of times there's money owed. And when that money's owed, people says, okay, well, they passed away, and let me send this in the IRS. Oh my God, they owed 100 grand. That's kind of too bad. They're dead. Well, yeah, that's unfortunately that's not how it works. IRS can come after that money. So you're going to say, oh, well, the person's dead. Well, how are they going to come after that person? Well, they're going to look to who got the assets. And if I had a case where I was working this case, a true story, and the it was an estate case, and I contacted the son who was the administrator of that estate, and I said, "Hey, what's left? You know, what's left here?" And the guy, not much. He says, "There's just, you know, stuff going on." So anyway, at the end of the day, I says, "Well, just it was a big case. There was a lot of money owed, and I had the case assigned to me." I says, "Hey, just send me your the checks. Would you? I'd like to see the checks just for the last couple years." So they went ahead and they send me the checks, and I'm looking through the checks. Does that noise bother you, or are you okay?
I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Hey, Marie, can you cut the water, please? The water. Are you running the water? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So anyway, put that in. People will know I'm home. This is working out well. So anyway, I was going through and I noticed a very large warehouse, and that warehouse had 4 bays. I just thought that was odd. Someone passed away, but the son was still funding the 4 bays. It was in this person's name. That's kind of odd. You know, you don't see that. Why is this? It could be collection of junk. So usually you're thinking, oh, it's just junk the person collects. And I don't know. The guy on the phone was kind of, I don't know. He was kind of, I don't know. He just kind of a little weird on the phone to me. You could kind of tell as you're an agent how people, you know, talk to you. So I asked the guy, says, "Hey, let's meet me at the base, could you? Here's the bay, national storage, whatever." The guy kept putting me off. He said, "Oh, meet this day, cancel this, meet this day, cancel this." He keep going over and over. So I decided just to go ahead and seize the bays. So I sent the seizure papers off. We didn't want to be here. I went ahead and I cut the locks, and inside there were 4 bays. There were 3 muscle cars. and those muscle cars were each worth over 125,000 at that time. They were primo muscle cars. So we went ahead and sold them and were able to pay the tax off. So basically, an IRS agent, if it's a sizable estate, if you owe over 100,000, maybe 90,000 and up, the case is going to be assigned to someone at IRS. An IRS is going to go and ask for a financial statement of the executor, administrator. What did the financial statement look at the time of death? And a lot of times, and they said, well, you need to give us something. Is there something in the estate? Sometimes it's filed, sometimes it's not. So we're required as agents to get that last financial statement at the time of death. There's always money in a bank account, right? There's always usually a car, unless the person hasn't been able to drive, could have been handicapped. There's usually a couple things that you see. Well, when you don't have anything, you're really suspicious. Unless that person has been in a home for 3 or 4 years, you're not going to find that. But when you pick up a case and you ask a couple questions, you generally know what's going to happen. So yeah, there's always money in a bank account. If there's a little, we don't bother with it. But sometimes there's CDs. Sometimes there were savings bond back in the time where there were saving bond. I had one case, there were over 600 bonds, Series E that they had that we recovered. So yeah, as an agent, you're going to go through anything you can to find out. You know, there's assets generally 90% of the time. So you're just trying to get a flashlight and see where some money was to collect
So,
it.
so like in that case where you said that they owed $100,000, why wasn't that 100,000 paid? Were they claiming
Just
that the
didn't want
estate was
to. I just didn't think the people who was were in charge of the estate just didn't think it was important. They just says, "Oh, IRS, their person's passed away. And what do they care?" It's like when you owe money on American Express when people die or this Citibank or whatever. Well, it's just too bad. Person's passed. They're not going to collect the money. That's not true with IRS. IRS usually doesn't go after cases that is under 25 or maybe even 50,000. They won't go after it. There's a threshold, there's a manual section that isn't made known to the public. Almost a lot of things are, this isn't. And it's the line in the sand where what's IRS doesn't go. And so right now there's algorithms set up depending on how many people they have to work cases. If they've got enough people to work cases, which they don't, they had enough, they can drop the amount. And when there's don't have a lot of revenue officers to work the cases, then they move that threshold up so they're not chasing. And IRS knows the percentage of time they're going to collect. Here's the problem in trying to collect that money. You can't get it through normal means. You have to file a nominee lien, which means that case has to go to district counsel, and that person at district counsel has to file a suit. So the agent is going to go ahead and look for assets to make sure there's assets there before they recommend the case, because they just don't want cases, going up there and not collect dollars. So
right. So when somebody dies, they went on to they went on to heaven, they've left this planet, and the executor now is the one that's responsible for
yes.
filing that tax return.
Yes, if IRS wants and you take assets, district counsel's office can file a nominee lien against that party who took them, and then they will go after that party as though they actually owed the tax themselves. So
Oh.
if the IRS feels there's $100,000 left, they will go ahead, file a lien against that person and enforce that money and go after that person to in fact collect the debt. That does not happen a lot. It's probably going to happen less and less with IRS's workforce shrinking, but IRS does have that capability of doing that. Does that make sense?
Yes, to hold the executor accountable.
Yes. Yes, because they
So,
could just keep taking and the other big thing is safety deposit boxes. You never know what's in that safety deposit box. I mean, as an agent, I've seen them before. Sometimes there's a lot of old coins, there's a lot of Cougarans. There's always assets inside a safety deposit box. that the person who has that box does not want anybody. I have seized, I don't know, 50 safety deposit vaults of different people. There's always stuff in there that's sellable. If not, they wouldn't put it in there.
Right, right. What about trust? When people set up a trust and they do pass away, now that trust is also accountable to file taxes every year, right?
Same thing. The trust owes the money. IRS goes after the person who you cannot hide money from IRS. You can, but there's no document that you can use if you owe money to shield yourself from IRS. IRS has legal procedures, fraudulent transfer, a nominee, alter ego. There's a number of legal remedies IRS has to go after those assets without question. Don't think you're going to put something in a trust, a foreign this, a foreign that, come up with all sorts of names. That just, it does not work.
Hmm. Now, in Florida, there is no inheritance tax, right?
Right.
Other states, there is, right? When you get your,
Yes, states are different. You've got to check with that state to find out what's required there. That's why you need an attorney from the state the decedent or the would-be decedent is going to go in, because I'm just talking about federal law, state of California, New York, Illinois. All these states have all these different things. And like I said, you need an attorney from that estate because there's millions of different questions that you could ask, and you need to be guaranteed you feel confident about that person. And if you're picking an attorney, you really want to pick, they say pick a young doctor and an old attorney. There's certain sayings that go on because newer doctors have no been trained in all the latest blah blah blah. But an old attorney, old sly attorneys, they know kind of what to do. They know what the law is. So generally, picking an attorney with gray hair probably is a real good idea. Not that I have gray hair, but I'm just saying. Someone passed that
someone
on.
that's been around the block and seen a few things to
Yeah,
really advise according.
yes. And there's a lot of different things. I mean, you know, when I was started at IRS, everyone kind of did all general work. Now everything is a specialty. I mean, look what you do. You do what you do. You sell. Tell everyone what you do, just to remind
Inherited,
everybody.
yep, inherited properties. So,
Yes, so you are a specialist in that. Now, if someone else is working your case, you know the ins and out. Now take that and look at hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in legal cases and tax in this. You need a special, you can't go to your general attorney and say, hey, can you whip some? When you whip something up, that means you don't want to spend the money. It means you don't want to go to an expert, and you're going to get what you pay for when you whip it up.
right, right. I see a lot of times with my clients as they're going through probate, they're just trying to rush through probate to get their name on the assets. So you're talking about the house. You're talking about if they were not listed as a beneficiary on the bank accounts, on any type of investment accounts that they have. So what I see is that the people are just like really trying to quickly get the
They
asset.
want their money. They're trying to get in and out, but most of them don't think of the safety deposit box. I'm just saying it's a quick, give me the money. There was a song, Take the Money and Run.
Yeah.
It's the song, Take the Money and Run. That's what they don't even care. A matter of fact, sometimes as soon as the person goes into the coal vault, by the body gets the ground, the first question is, show me the money. It's that simple. And
Mhm.
that's human nature. That's not, you don't grieve and say, oh, I'm going to wait a month to try to get my money. Let me see no, I mean, you're not going to take that on anybody, nobody whatsoever.
But I think a lot of things that people don't talk about, they rush to the money, but then they don't talk about the taxes
Right,
that is associated with getting
right,
money, right? Because when you get an inheritance, right? So in Florida, there's no inheritance tax, right? So we're not taxed on
right.
what we get, right? However, when we sell a property, right, you're getting proceeds from that sale. If you liquidate an insurance policy, right, you're getting a cash settlement, right? So is basically all of your inheritance as a Floridian, okay, all of your cash inheritance that you would be receiving, that would just be calculated just as your income for that year, correct?
Yeah, and other things you have to realize, people got property in other states, they moved down. They're all Florida probably has more unique situations than anybody else
Mhm.
because they're moving down, they have property here, they may have a timeshare. I mean, there are so many there, you can't even make general statements. There's so many subcategories. You immediately have to go into someone who actually plans for everything happening. How does that start? You have to have a list of the assets. You have to have that list. And as soon as that person passes away, you've got to know exactly. And the other thing is, do you tell the kids? Do you tell, don't you tell the kids? You don't tell the kids. You keep it private. Do you make a recording? I know a lot of people now that are writing up the wills and actually leaving a recording, telling people why they did this and why they did this, so it doesn't look like they're, yeah. But you got to go to someone. Sure, however much you pay on this is how much you're going to be safe. So the bigger the case, you've got to go to someone experienced. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And that's
And
why what you're doing is so good. You have to get a team involved. Look, if you're just talking about mom and pa have a house, you don't have to worry about that. But when you're talking about more than that, you got to let the attorney make that decision. It's that simple. Yeah, what you're doing is great. You've got a marketplace, you got a team, you have a movable team. It's like you're coming in as a triage unit and you're trying to take over, right? Isn't that what you're doing?
yes, yes. And putting everything simple, like we talked a little bit about all fear, you talked about a checklist, these things people have to go through whether they want to go through it or not, and like you said, people don't want to talk about it. If we go with your theory that people still don't want to talk about it, then it's still going to be this big mystery for the heir that's inheriting everything. Now they've got to really quick and squabble and figure it all out.
I've
uh,
seen fights at funeral homes before, just
yeah.
in, I was in one funeral and I seen a fight break out and I went over and I asked the director what's going on. And someone said they weren't happy with the will and someone tried to have dad sign this really at the end. I am telling you, death is nasty
Yeah.
unless all you're doing by not doing this is you're giving your heirs nothing but a squabble, and you're actually setting them up to fail. That's,
Right. Right.
can I
Yeah.
have that flamingo? We've talked about this. We're doing this show. I just want you to know, people listening to this, Carolyn has that flamingo. The flamingo is not for sale. I understand it. However, it does not say I can't gift that to somebody or giving that to somebody. She says it's not for sale. The reason I think it's not for sale is she doesn't want to create a taxable event. I think she's thinking of me and taxes and IRS. So if you're listening to this, I wish you would go ahead and send Carolyn a message and said, since you're not giving it to Michael, would you consider giving it to us? I'm just saying, I know it's not for sale. You did that for me.
Fernando, it's okay, calm down, he's getting worse.
I had to do that. You deserve
Thank
that.
you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. So tell me something, a mistake. I mean, all your years that you've been seeing death and you've been in the tax
You
world.
have to have a will. You must have a will. You must have a will. The biggest mistake is not planting for death and have professionals guide you. That is the only mistake that you're talking about. And it has to be in the will the right way so you don't have to pay the tax. So there's different trusts. There's so many different things that you can put in here, but I can't tell you more. Here's the thing, and here's the thing I ask. How do you get someone to talk about this, Carolyn? I mean, you're in this. How do you get people to talk about? You have this group. It's a fine group. How do you get people to move? How do you do it?
Yeah, it's
No, how
I
do you do it?
I've actually been noticing that people in my age, believe it or not, have been very open to having the conversations, okay? It's our parents, okay, that are holding everything very close to their chest, right? So I have friends my age, when I bring up the conversation, they want to set up their own wills. They want to get the communication. They want to have the understanding. So I'm personally thinking that we're on a new trend where people are not as scared of death, or not as death is not as taboo as it has been in past generations. People are now becoming, there's all these crazy people talking about immortality. And I know we can go on, on a tangent, but like AI taking over, and, they're trying to figure out how to develop consciousness. And people are now, more in tune with, the beginning and the end, and we're all out here working so hard, create, I mean, when people pass away when they're old in age, it's obviously expected, right? But I've worked with families where the lady's going to the hospital because she has a stomach pain. She never came back home. I'm sitting at a kitchen table with her 19 and 20-year-old son. Like these things, like we don't know when that time is going to come. And the very basic things, our house, our bank accounts, our 401ks, whatever stocks we have, all of these things, they don't just magically transfer over when someone passes away. And the family's already grieving. It's already a huge loss, right? And then you've got to go through all these legalities to be able to access your funds, to be able, like I said, people don't know about taxes. They don't know about what to do after somebody passes away. They go through probate, they do the whole thing. I've spoken with families that say, "Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to file a tax return." I'm like, "Your attorney didn't talk to you about it?" You know?
Actually, one of the things I tell everyone is you should get your parents' passwords, because if something happens and they pass away, a lot of the records, sometimes if they're semi-sophisticated, keep it in their computer, it's in the files, and they can't access it. So that's another thing you've got to really add
Too
to that list.
antiquated. The whole system is too antiquated.
Yeah,
I
it
think that
is.
with technology and AI and everything that we have, like you at your attorney's office, you set up a trust. He doesn't have a copy. They don't keep the wills like on record. So if you don't have the physical will that your grandpa hid somewhere, so no one can see it, sometimes there is a will and nobody can even find it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, the thing is everyone's got to have an A to Z list of what to do. Here's what you got to do. And at some point in time, um, the greatest gift that you can give a family is an A to Z list. It'll keep the family in check. People know what's going on. No one can get mad at each other. Yeah, you have to have a strong administrator, a strong attorney, because it's like a divorce. It's like, I think that one of the toughest parts of law to go ahead is family law, because it's everyone's bitter.
Mm,
Well, I don't know anyone who's happy when it comes to the distribution of assets. I
mm.
just don't, unless everyone gets.
Yep. Hope you guys are getting
So anyway, that was the Belgian Malinois, who now is getting in timeout. So
getting
yeah, we're
feisty.
gonna put that little dog and the dogs in timeout. The
Yeah.
dogs sometimes like to pretend. The shepherd is so young, and you can keep that on. It just shows you, yeah, these things happen. So anyway, there's no will, by the way, in either one of those dogs. So actually, that's another thing. I tell you another thing, funny story. I was working in
Embarrassing.
IRS, and no, I was working in IRS, and I called both parties because I knew there was some money missing. And you know what? One of the big fights were who was getting Gramps' dog. You'd be
Oh,
surprised.
wow.
You'd be surprised the things that are in there. Who thinks of putting your dog in the will, right? Now
Right.
think of that. People actually wanted the dog. So, and I'm
Mhm.
telling you, when you open a safety deposit box, there's things there that are not in the will. Who
Mhm.
gets them? So I'm
Mhm.
just telling you, for whatever your list is, make sure you
Mhm.
put the safety deposit box and the passwords to the computer. Those are two really important things that
Mhm.
people don't think about. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. So this was enlightening for the death and taxes, okay, interim of our video series here. Number one, the IRS is coming for you, right? Even if you're dead.
Well, they're coming from you're coming from your family. You can never, yeah, they're coming. Yeah, they're not gonna do that. Yeah, it was interesting one time. This is sad, sick. So I was working a case and I found an inventory list of things. This is sick. So there was a diamond ring that's probably worth $25,000. Right. I was working the case. So I asked the person, the kid, the son, I don't know how old, I forget how, maybe 40, 45. I said, hey, where's this diamond ring? It belonged to his mother who had left it to the father. Well, the son took a picture of his dad laying in the coffin, and then he took a picture with the ring on there. The
Oh,
$25,000 IRS could have got 25,000. So I asked where the picture was. I asked what happened, as I knew I had the inventory sheet. He says, "Yep." He says, "It went down with that." He says, "What are you going to exhume it?" I can exhume it, but sure enough, my guess is my guess to this date is that kid took put that ring when everyone left. He put the ring on the dad, took the picture, the
mm-hmm.
flowers and everything, made sure it was shiny just a little bit. I'm sure he took that ring off when he went ahead. I just remember, certain stories I know for a fact. This kid was so nefarious. I just know to this date, I would bet anything that kid just set that picture up so he could keep that 25,000. Remember, that was a lot of money back at the time, probably worth maybe 125, $150,000 today. Yeah, yeah, that was a case I
That
worked.
was dirty. Yeah.
Isn't that cool? I mean, it's a cool story, right? Kid was
A
pretty
cool
clever.
story. Yeah,
No one's
creepy, but
gonna, if I
cool.
was a real jerk, I would have exhumed the body. They wouldn't have let me. God, you know why? If they lifted the body and the ring was still there, I really look like a fool. So it's better to say, right, hey, I'm walking away. I'm tearing my
Right.
clothes, ripping my sheet, and that's it.
Right, right. Well, I think that, with, these conversations, people are getting more open-minded. They're understanding, the processes that, have to take place after someone passes. And like I said, with the taxes, I just feel like it's still a very gray matter. And I guess it's because every family situation's different. Every, financials are different. But based off of what we discussed today, we said that, the deceased person does have to file the tax returns for that year. So their income statement for that year, they're still accountable for. And then the estate tax return, what taxes do they have to pay on the estate tax return? I guess that's the part I still get confused about,
No,
because if you don't
you gotta
inheritance
talk
tax.
to the attorney.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain dollar thresholds that you have to meet before
Mm-hmm.
you pay tax. So basically, the attorney comes in, he asks for an asset list, and basically, you just stick everything in a template, and boy, it just shoots out what has to be done. With AI now, you can probably just go ahead and AI any question that you want. I live in the state of Florida. There's a $300,000 house. I have this furniture, I have that. How much estate? You could today you can go ahead. How much do you trust
Wow.
AI? And but you could. I bet you could do that right now, and you'll probably get an answer really close. However, anytime you deal with money, you want to make sure someone's license is on the line.
Hmm.
So, and someone who's a
But is it the
professional.
attorney that is the one that's stipulating how much taxes have to be paid?
Oh,
Is
no,
it
there's a
state law?
template that you have. You fill out the form, you
Right,
send
all the
in the
assets.
template. But when you've done this a lot, you just automatically know, you just spit out the answers. It's not a mystery. Like if you're telling me if you want an IRS settlement, I know exactly what the formula is. So as soon as you hear it as a professional, you know what the answer is going to be. But today, you can probably ask that question, say, I live in the state of Florida.
Mhm.
Here is the asset situation. How much tax do I have to pay and what should I do? Today, you will have an answer on that question.
I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try that. And whatever, so whatever that answer would be, that executor needs to make plans, right, to have
Yes.
that paid. Now, is that typically paid before the attorney disperses out
Yeah,
the
that money, the attorney's going to close the estate out. The attorney's going to get the money, sell the assets, maybe get cash, do some selling, maybe some money was in an account. They're going to make sure the everything was closed in lieu of, and they're going to send those checks out, and then they close the probate. An attorney is not going to be responsible for not paying things. There's no way that's going to happen. That attorney, just like a real estate closing, it's no
right.
different. What do you?
Right, but Mike, what, so they collect all the monies, they collect all the assets, right? And then they say there's five beneficiaries, the will says to split it all evenly.
There's different expenses that get paid out first. There's super priorities and priority expenses. The
Hmm.
money's collected, those are paid out, and then there's net proceeds left after
Mm,
after all like there's maybe a funeral, there may be flowers, there may be a
any
hearse.
fees.
There's different expenses that you have. Maybe the real estate was sold. There may be an expense to a real estate agent. That attorney is going to get all the expenses. They're going to cash out what they can, pay the expenses first, and the net, he'll have an accountability for where that money went. And I'm sure everyone's going to ask for it because they don't want to lose a nickel. So they're
Mm.
going to keep really, really meticulous records, and then they do the disbursement on the net. That's just like real estate.
So that monies that then they disperse out,
Yeah.
the beneficiaries, or where does the estate taxes, what monies is that being paid out of? So when
Well,
you
out of the
talk about an
estate,
estate tax,
out of the estate, out of the estate. The
right,
attorney is not going to disperse until all the taxes are paid. If there's an attorney involved, an
right.
administrator will make sure all that money with the attorney, they'll get together, they'll sit down, and they'll make sure everything is paid before dollar one goes to anybody because you want to close out the estate.
Right. So that tax amount will be accounted for before
Oh,
disbursement.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's the same as you. If you're doing a real estate closing, you're going to pay every bill before you disperse to the buyer or the seller. I mean, to the, yeah, to the
So
seller. You're going to disperse everything, right? You're not going to leave a bill here, this here or that here, or a survey there, or you're not gonna do that. It's the same thing. It's no different than this.
is there any estates that would not have to pay taxes?
I'm not aware of that. I don't deal with that, so I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer.
I
Yeah.
don't remember. Everyone wants their due. A lot of times people like to tax that because there's not a lot of people to argue that because
Mm,
they're getting money that they never had to get. And plus, the dead people aren't going to challenge that. And
mm,
there was a sweeping change, I think, on a state tax on the big, beautiful tax bill by Trump. I don't know
mm,
what that is. That wasn't my area, but I know there was recent legislation that got passed. You'll have to AI to find
mhm.
that out, but I knew there was something that just passed regarding that.
Yeah. Excellent. Mike, you're the best.
Can
Thank
I
you.
get can I get the flamingo now?
Mike, Fernando's gonna get upset.
Fernando, well, let me ask you, would you rather Fernando be upset or Michael be upset?
I don't know. He's a feisty one, this guy.
Well, what I want to do, I want to close this with prayer, if you don't mind.
Oh, I love
If
that,
you
Mike.
keep it out, that would be great. I thank you for everyone listening. I just want you to know if there's any errors, please talk to Carolyn. If you come to me, everything that I have is held in a drug cartel, a Colombian drug cartel. So if you try to sue me, they will deal with that, not me or my family. So I make that claim now. Let's just all close our eyes if we could. I always end my day or any conversation act with new clients. You call me, I always end in prayer. Lord, I thank you so much for this time to be able to share the knowledge you gave to me. It's from you that I really can talk. It's from you that I give this knowledge. It's from you every thought that comes captive to my mind belongs to other people. It's just really a gift to me. Nothing that I have is mine. Everything, in fact, comes from you. So I'm thankful for this day. I'm thankful for Carolyn asked me to be on this program. I asked the hearers today of what they're hearing to at least to enjoy what they've heard and to give them at least some sort of knowledge to go ahead and seek the counsel they need in every situation, an expert that they need to govern them accordingly into the things that they do. For Carolyn and her practice, her ministry, and her family, I ask God to put a special hedge of protection, Father, around her to remove the angst and the worries and the fears she has in her life and the hearer's life. There is no part of that we should have with us. So now may the Lord bless us and keep us. May his countenances and mercies and love always be with us. May he give us wisdom and peace in this world as we pass through the next. And may we glorify God with everything that we do. I pray this in the name of Christ Jesus, in the name of the Father and of the Son and the mighty Holy Spirit. And the people of God say amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mike.
Have a good one, buddy. Nice talk.